I'm sitting here now with Jim Dorsey, a nationwide insurance agent who's featured on our nationwide commercial. And Jim is here today on Consumer Spotlight to talk about some of the pitfalls that you, the consumer, can avoid in purchasing car insurance today. Jim, it's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you, Bob.
Jim, tell us a little bit about your background, your professional background before becoming an insurance person, and what you had to do to study to learn what goes into selling insurance.
Well, Bob, I started out in the plumbing and heating business.
With your dad?
Yes. They've been in the plumbing and heating business for about 20, 30 years, and I entered the business about 21 years old, and you have to go to a lot of schoolings and a lot of training, but it's basically a lot of reading and just getting out and seeing the people. But there isn't a whole lot of actual formal training that you have to go through.
I see. Now, why is it that auto insurance today seems so expensive?
Well, Bob, the main reason is inflation. As we all know, inflation is eating us all alive. And the price of the cars today, the average Chevette, Toyota, is about $7,000 or $8,000. Your body shops are charging quite a bit for their labor. And I would say that's the main reason for your increased cost today. But inflation is probably the main. If I had to give one answer, that would be at inflation.
What are some of the things that one could do to keep the expense down without decreasing the liability limits?
Okay, well, it's a good point you mentioned the liability limits. Whatever you do, keep your liability limits high. As an attorney, you know what the lawsuits are like today, and that's one thing you do not want ever cut down is your liability limits. But one of the things that you could do that I advise on new cars is to take a higher deductible, like a $250 deductible on your collision. This could reduce your cost by approximately $30 to $40 a year. And that is one big area. Another big area is to have fewer accidents. That's that really helps a lot. But your collision deductible is one major area where you can lower your car insurance. Another key thing is to carpool. Try to live close to your job. Car insurance companies rate you on how far you drive to work. So that's
another factor.
That's right.
What valuable coverages are many consumers overlooking on their auto policy, which ought to be changed?
Well, I would say that two of the most important things on an automobile policy today are your personal injury protection and your uninsured motorist coverage.
And they're referred to as, perhaps your viewers have heard of, PIP coverage and UMC coverage. Perhaps you could explain personal injury protection and uninsured motorist coverage.
Well, I'll briefly go into personal injury protection. Is just what it says. It actually pays the medical expenses if someone were to get hurt in the car. Okay, well, passenger, driver, whatever. It's an expanded coverage. It even covers a death benefit. And there's a lot more coverage. You should really contact your agent and let him go into it in more detail with you. The uninsured motorist coverage is it's very much a problem in Delaware. There's approximately 15% of all Delawareans driving around without auto insurance.
If you're in an accident with them, you're in trouble.
That's exactly right, Bob. Approximately, like I said, 15% don't have insurance, and if someone hits you, the average policy today only covers $10,000. And $10,000 today just doesn't go very far.
That's 1 week's visit to the hospital.
That's exactly right. I recommend that you increase your uninsured motorist limits to at least $100,000, and that's what most of your bodily injury limits are.
It doesn't cost that much more to increase it to $100,000.
No. If your personal injury protection only costs about $3.
To increase it to $100,000?
Yes, and your uninsured motorist is a little bit more expensive, approximately $10 for 6 months, but
it's well worth it.
It's well worth it because if an uninsured motorist hits you, or an underinsured motorist, someone that hits you that's not breaking the law, they just have minimum limits, which is $10,000 in this state. An underinsured motorist is not breaking the law. They could you could be at a red light. They were out drinking that night or having a good time, and you're with your family sitting at a red light, and you're hit, and you could go into the hospital, be paralyzed, and getting $10,000 from your insurance policy or from that underinsured motorist is just not enough today.
And so you can take the coverage from the $10,000 minimum from the other person and then stack your underinsured motorist coverage on top of that.
That's exactly right.
Now, of course, PIP coverage is what Delaware calls its no-fault statute. Regardless of whose fault it is, the person's own policy will pay for certain expenses, as you mentioned before.
That's exactly right. If you're in an automobile accident and you had to go to the hospital, even if you're not at fault, your carrier will pay the expenses.
And they will also represent you.
That's exactly right.
In the insurance area, consumers are eligible for various discounts. And what are some of these discounts that would reduce a premium?
Well, one discount that the viewers out there, they have children that are in school and they keep a B average in school, you can save up to 15 to 20% on the child's
really? Grades?
Yes, grades are very, very important if you, like I said, keep a B average in school.
You should contact your insurance adjuster about that.
Yes, generally they'll ask for a copy of the report card, and this is something that you can get from your guidance counselor, or usually they like to have a current report card, and that could save, like I said, up to 15 to 20% so get out there and study.
I suppose you're having problems getting satisfaction from insurance company when you presented a claim to them. Would you recommend calling the insurance commissioner's office?
Well, the insurance commissioner does have a toll-free number. If you're having trouble with an insurance company or your agent, or you're just not satisfied with service, the insurance department does have a toll-free number in which they will, which they can help you out. But your agent should be able to help you out.
Well, we've had the announcements of the winners from the giveaway, and I see it's sitting here in front of us. So, Jim, I'm going to announce the winners. Dinner for two the winner is for the Rollins restaurant is Lillian Kemper, and I want to congratulate you, Lillian. The Delaware Theater Company, the first pair of tickets to go see Christmas Carol on December 19 is Mrs. Richard Glazer of Holiday Hills, and the winner of the second pair is Paul Shavak. And I want to congratulate you also. I also want to congratulate all those people who were trying to call in today, because we had some telephone problems in the beginning of the phone call, and we got through them and were able to get through the calls. And for those of you who don't get through normally on these telephone calls, don't be disappointed. You've got to keep trying, and you'll get through sometime. We're going to tell you now about next week's show. It's going to feature Lost Orphans, a country rock group. Sig Ettinger from B&B Ticket Town is going to tell about some of his experiences selling tickets. Jim, I think you'll be interested in that. I know you're a sports fan.
That's right.
John Flynn, who's a singer, songwriter, guitarist, with the Wilmington Opera Society, is coming on with some of its leads from Babes in Toyland, its upcoming Christmas production, and they'll do some of the songs and dances from that, as well as an interview with La Cantina Restaurant, which was featured on our giveaway today, and the interview with Dennis Melton and Frank Levy, the producer and executive producer, respectively, on a new album called the Outdoor Cabarets 1980 album, as well as a fashion show of contemporary fashions by Arthur's Women's Wear. So that's quite a lineup of show. I want to thank tonight's guest. It's been a pleasure being with you. We look forward to seeing you next Thursday at 7:30.